What's up, Constitution class? This is Mr. Barr. Obviously, we're starting a new kind of era here in the story of our class as we approach week, I don't know, whatever it is, feels like 9 million of quarantine here. I wanted to just touch base with you and give you kind of a couple ideas on how this is going to work going forward. So what I'm going to do is every week there will be 2 to 3 learning goals posted right at the beginning of the week on Monday morning. Usually you'll get 2 kind of big things to work on. It won't take you very long. They'll just be short little things. Like, for example, when this video is done, you'll have just a 5-question reflection to do on Wednesday's video. I'm not sure what we'll do yet. We'll figure something out. But those things will always be due on Friday. You can find the information on Classroom. If you have any questions, just make sure you email me. The topic this week is federalism, and it's a very super relevant topic right now with what's going on, especially with the president and the national lockdown and the coronavirus situation. So we're going to spend some time reviewing federalism and making sure that that's a topic that's understood by you, because it is important. Okay, originally under the Articles of Confederation, each state had complete sovereignty, freedom, and independence. Okay, so, and all powers that were not expressly delegated to the United States. So basically every state was its own independent nation, essentially. The national government had very little power to make them do anything. For example, if you remember back from government, we talked a lot about the fact that one of the weaknesses of the articles was that the federal government couldn't do anything. They couldn't tax, they couldn't raise an army, they couldn't do lots of things without permission from the states. That caused a problem. The Constitution created the new national government, but it left many powers to the states. Those are called reserve powers. In fact, the 9th and 10th Amendment are where we find the reserve powers, especially in the 10th Amendment. I said earlier we were going to really spend time on the 1st through the 6th Amendment when we went over the Bill of Rights, which we never did get that test in. That shows you that you should never take a Monday test. But anyway, the 10th Amendment says any powers not granted to the national government are given to the states. Okay, so the states have the ability to do anything that the national government can't do. Okay. Federalism, then, is that relationship between the national government and the states. Remember, we have a federal republic, okay? We have a federal system. So we have 50 individual state governments that govern that state, and we also have one national government in Washington, D.C. The national government's supreme, and they take precedent when there's a conflicting law, but otherwise, each state has its own government that governs it. For example, Iowa has its own executive, legislative, and judicial branch that governs Iowa. Kim Reynolds is the governor. We have the Iowa General Assembly, and then we have the Iowa Judiciary. James Madison, the early founding fathers were Federalists. Washington was a Federalist. Adams was a Federalist. Madison was a Federalist. And Madison wrote the Constitution. He said this: the powers of the states would extend to all the objects which, in the ordinary course of affairs, concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people, and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. That's from Federalist 45. Remember that quote. We'll come back to it in a minute. Okay? States play an important role in the structure and operation of the national government. Article 7, for example, required the votes of 9 states to ratify the Constitution. Article 1 says the states will elect their own representatives. And remember, up until the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, U.S. senators were chosen by the states. So clearly the founding fathers wanted a relationship between the national government and the states. The reserve powers in the 10th Amendment are called police powers. Okay, and basically it's a term that refers to the power of government to enact legislation protecting the health, safety, welfare, and morals of those within its jurisdiction. That morals thing creates an issue, and we'll come back to that in a little while. But the point is that states have the power under the 10th Amendment to govern their states as they see fit, and those powers are called police powers. That's why, for example, Governor Reynolds can order Iowa schools to close. The president can't order Iowa schools to do much of anything. Okay. Although the states have some governing power, the Constitution does make it clear that the Constitution, the laws of the national government, the laws of the United States are the supreme law of the land. And we see this a lot in, it's called the National Supremacy Clause. Both levels of government share power, but the national government is supreme. So things like marijuana laws. Okay, marijuana is legal in several states, but it's illegal at the federal level, right? Well, the reason that you can still be charged with it is because it's national supremacy. The national law takes precedent over state law. The Great Depression changed federalism. So over the course of about 200 years, you saw this relationship develop. There's something called grant and aid programs. We'll look at that more exclusively later this week. But the thing that I want you to understand is that big events sometimes change that relationship between the national government and the states. The Great Depression was so bad that people began to look to the national government to solve problems such as unemployment and help in areas such as job services, assistance for the elderly. Sound familiar? It should. Previously, people would look to charities or state government to solve these problems. So again, the Great Depression is a seminal moment in American history because really the role of government shifted immensely. And that was something that the country's really been dealing with for a long time. So here's the thing. We're sitting here now in the midst of a quarantine or a stay-at-home scenario here. Understand something. The other night, I was watching the president's press briefing, and he pointed out correctly that he can't order a national lockdown. Why can't he? Because of federalism. And he actually used this. Hey, it's a federal system, right? We have 50 state governments. I'd rather let the governors decide. Okay, so that fine line between when does the national government step in and when does the state government step in is an interesting one to think about. Okay, also, the Great Depression and big events can sometimes change that relationship. We're in the midst of a pretty decently big event right now, and I think it's going to change what we expect the national government to do. We'll stop there, answer the 5 questions that are posted to Google Classroom, and if you have any questions, make sure you shoot me an email. Have a great day. It's great to be a Bulldog.